Welcome back, heathens. There has been an overwhelming amount of yes to my question of whether or not you guys want lore from God of War 4. It's very rhymey, and I didn't even realize that when I was writing this out. But you guys had said that you did want it. Now, I want to say before we get into this at all, if you do not want spoilers, because there are going to be a metric fuck ton of them in this video, please click away now if you want to experience the game raw and how it's intended for yourself. This video is for people who have already played the game or people who just want to know the accuracy of the game for themselves. Now, in this video specifically, I'm not going to be talking about any of my family stories in regards to what goes on in God of War. I'm just going to compare it to the raw lore. I'm going to compare it to the overarching story of what you get in the prose and the eddas and what the majority story is in the game. So there's quite a few major differences, but as I said in the first video, it actually really works for the storytelling. Like, they've done a spectacular job in changing things so that it works well in a linear fashion, because anybody who's ever studied mythology knows it's not linear in any way. It's fucked, is the best way I can describe it. It's a shit show. Like, none of it is linear. It's not written in the way of storytelling, because a lot of these things were written periodically. They weren't written to be a story. They were written as they came about. So then when they were collected and put together, the stories just didn't make sense. There's a lot of linear issues that go on. But what God of War did was it took all of the overarching story, the message that is delivered in Norse mythology. And I also want to point out that when we say Norse mythology is actually like Swedish mythology, Icelandic mythology, Norse mythology. It actually pretty much stretches across all of Scandinavian culture and even into some Germanic cultures. So it's much more broad than that, and I want to give credit where it is due in that instance, because you only ever hear people call it Norse mythology, and that's not 100% accurate. But moving on. So now that we have all of the disclaimers out of the way, let's get into the big major difference. Our primary Our primary antagonist in the story is Baldur. And Baldur is one of the sons of Thor. But not Thor. What the hell is wrong with me today? One of the sons of Odin. Baldur is one of the sons of Odin, and he has a brother who is one of the few gods that we ever get being depicted as being disabled, and he is blind, and his name is Holdur. And pretty much how they depict Baldur in the game is accurate, but not to the way of what you would see in like popular academic depiction. He is projected as being like, I'll put the name in here because I can't remember it, but he's depicted basically the same way that the one of the Greek gods. He's depicted as being beautiful and benevolent and all of these other things, and that is really poorly translated from what is actually in the mythologies, and I think it's sort of a lost in translation sort of thing. Because yes, that's true, he's depicted as being very beautiful, he's depicted as being beautiful and being strong and beloved by all, but he's also a warmonger, and you have to understand that in a warrior culture, being beautiful and being beloved doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as it does if you're talking about a culture that favored intellectualism over the individual, which was what Greece and the Romans were. Even though the Romans were more of a warrior culture and it kind of shifted into that, the Greeks were very much on a high horse when it came to things about like philosophy and so on, and we all see what that did for their empire. It didn't work out well. But the Norse and the Gaelic and the Celts and the Gauls, these were warrior cultures, and all of their philosophy centered around the strength of the single being the strength of the whole. So Baldur is actually like a major warmonger, and I went off on a major tangent here that I wasn't supposed to go on. This whole point was that Freya is not Baldur's mom. I don't know how I got off where I got off on that, but Freya is not Baldur's mom in the actual mythology. It's Frigg. It's the actual wife of Odin. And I've talked about this before, but Freya gets a lot of credit for the shit that Frigg did in Norse mythology. Like, she gets credited for everything that Frigg did, and I think that's because people see Freya as being more of a powerful goddess, because she's a goddess of fertility, she's a goddess of battle, she's a goddess of the hunt. And in some depictions, including the depictions in God of War, she's depicted as having to do with the Valkyries. So she's seen as being a much stronger goddess, whereas Frigg is a goddess of wisdom and of foresight and of all of these other things. So I guess, and she's much more, I don't want to say womanly, but what you would consider to be womanly. She attends to her children. She attends to the kingdom of Asgard. Like, she is very attentive as like a mother and a female leader, whereas Freya is much more like one of the boys. And I think that's why people give her so much credit, because she gets credit for literally almost everything that Frigg does, which is insane. She's depicted as being the mother of Thor, of Tyr, of Balder, of Holdr, and she's not the mother of any of those. Those are all Frigg's children, so it's kind of weird, but that's one of the big major differences between the actual mythology and what we get in the game. And I know why they did that. It is because she's more popularly depicted that way, but I'm also wondering if there's going to be more story significance to it, because as of yet, I can't see why there would be, except for in more modern depictions, Freya is seen as being a goddess of witchcraft, which there's not a whole lot of credence to that if you go back far enough, but that's how she's depicted in the more modern tellings of the story. But yeah, so there's that. The next big and major difference, and it's not necessarily a difference from the mythology, as much as it's an odd choice for storytelling, and that's Magni and Modi. Magni and Modi are in fact the sons of Odin, and their rivalry, as one of them being seen as being better than the other, and one of them being favored by Thor, like that has real credence in the mythologies themselves. However, the fact that they die in the first game before even Balder is interesting, because they are two of the only gods. I think there are 6 gods, and I'll correct myself on that if I'm wrong, but there are 6 gods that survive Ragnarok, and Magni and Modi are 2 of them, and they actually end up taking the mantle and power of Thor. So it's very interesting that they die off in the first game, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more at the end, about why I think that is. This is the big one, and if you have not played through the game, and you've watched up to this point, I strongly recommend clicking away, because this is a major spoiler for the end of the game. Now, we know that Kratos' wife's name is Faye, and we know that she is depicted as being a Jotun, or a giant, in the game. But we don't actually get any sort of lore until much, much later in the game about who she may be. And eventually we get the reveal before the end that she is Laufey, the giantess Laufey. And it is also important to notice, and this is one of my favorite things that they did in the game, it's brilliant. There's a point in the game where, and I'm rambling on things I shouldn't, guys, I'm going to be talking about all this later, but there's a point in the game where Kratos and Atreus are talking about the giants, and Atreus says, Kratos says, these tunnels are too small for giants to fit through, because Atreus said that the giants passed through here. And Atreus laughs, and Kratos asks him what's funny, and he says, oh, you're serious? Giants, it doesn't refer to their size. And that's one of the most important things from mythology, is that giants in most mythologies, but most specifically in Gaelic and in Scandinavian mythology, giants don't refer to the size of the individual. They refer to the power of the individual. The word giant doesn't mean big. It refers to their power. It refers to their prestige. It refers to their ability. So Laufey is a giant. The Jotun are all giants, but very few of them are actually depicted as being giants. As a matter of fact, the giants in both of these mythologies would be more appropriately classified as titans or as monsters. And again, we'll talk about all of this later on, but I just wanted to point that out. And then when we get to the end of the game, we see that Laufey had wanted to name Atreus Loki. And in the mythology, Loki is the son of Laufey. and it's just incredibly interesting, and we'll talk more on that when we get there, because I don't want to reveal too much about that lore before the next game comes out, but we are going to talk on it a little bit more. I just want to really see where they go with it, because when you see the final mural, and I'm only going to talk a little bit about this because I want to do a whole video on Kratos itself, but there is a heavy implication that somehow they're going to make Kratos tier. And if you've played the God of War games at all, you know that time travel is a major factor. In the God of War games, he uses time travel in the first game, second, and third game. And it's a major aspect in like how they manipulate the lore of these mythologies to fit their storytelling. And it's always done brilliantly. Like I don't think it's the same writer for every game, but the writers for these games are brilliant. And if you have to take an extra year to make a game this good, please fucking do it, because this is wonderful. More games need to be made this way, and I would literally kill people just to get the industry standard up to this. Like, the storytelling is brilliant. Yes, it's very different from the mythology, but they are working the mythology, the vagaries in the mythology, in order to suit the story so it becomes more linear, and it actually, ironically, ends up making more sense than the original mythologies that were translated by scholars. It's incredible that these fictionists, these people who are literally just making video games based off of these vagaries and knowledges that have been around for centuries, are making it make more sense than what the actual ancient texts do. And we'll talk more about that when I talk about like stuff that my family has recorded and so on. But it's very, very interesting what they've managed to do. Okay, so I have a list here, and I'm going to read it real quick, because that's all we've got for today, I think. Yes, yeah, that's all we've got. Okay, but I have a list. Which videos do you guys want first? Because there's going to be a fuck ton of them. Do you want videos on the lore markers in the game first? Do you want videos on Mimir's tales first? Because I'm going to do all of these, but I want to know what you guys want me to do first. Okay. Or do you want videos on the individual gods and monsters that appear in the game, like a bestiary series? Because I'm gonna do them all, and we're talking about, this is probably like fucking 6 months worth of videos, but I'm really excited to do these because this is the kind of stuff I've been wanting to do for a while. So you guys let me know, comments down below. What do you want? Which ones do you want first? Which ones do you want more? And even if you have a specific one that you want me to do if you've already played the game, please leave that down below as well. And if you have not subscribed already, please take your mighty weaponry fingers and destroy the subscribe button. And on your backhand slash, ting that notification bell so that you can be informed whenever I upload videos. And if you don't follow me on all of the other things, please do. And you can also leave suggestions and discussions over on Reddit. My Reddit is r/YeezusBeasts. And yeah, you can leave me memes, you can leave me suggestions for videos, whatever you like. And until next time, stay bloodthirsty, my friends, and remember, all hail.